in this episode of the Living God's Light podcast.
You've just forgotten and you think that it's real. And so then I said, well, I can't go back into my body because, like she's a prostitute. She's wrapped in addiction. Like there's no way to heal. I can't heal it. And they said, well, you don't have to go back into her, but you will be returning. After I had made the decision to go back into my body, they came at me in like this very loving kind of way. And then I heard this message and it said, but you're worthy of all the love in the universe. You're worthy of all the love in the universe. Somewhere along the way, God became like a best friend.
I am
living God's light.
Betty, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yes.
How has your life been since Next Level Soul interview? Is it just
it's chaos? I'm very ungrounded. Thank you for all of your love and support. I feel much more grounded.
Oh my goodness. Well, your story. So I sat in with you at IONS and I got brave enough to get up and ask you a question. And like when I walked away from IONS, I was like, her story is what I needed to hear. Everything about her story. Your vibes, your energy. I mean, to be completely honest too, we just had a conference just this past weekend. So we're all kind of on a buzz from our little conference we just had. And as I was preparing my presentation, all I wanted to do was show up in authenticity like Betty.
That's really nice. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So seriously, we're so excited to have you on today. It really is. Your story is It's fun. Your story is fun. Not a lot of NDEs are, that you could categorize them as fun, and yours is. So
thanks for saying that. Yeah. A lot of trauma, but a lot of triumph too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So remind me what the name of your presentation was at IONS.
It was from sex worker to light worker, a life.
I was like, I'm going to that.
It was a little clickbaity. That was like the idea. I was like, I'm definitely going to get people in with a title like this.
It was perfect. It was perfect. So yeah. Vinny, did you even see her there?
I got to give you 2 hugs the whole weekend, but it was like both of us were going in so many different directions. I didn't get to sit down on yours. Man, I wish I could have.
Yeah, I got to spend some time with Vinny's wife in the hot tub after one of the days at the conference. So I kind of felt like I was hanging out with Vinny a little bit.
Perfect.
Which William was there too, I'll bet.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Cool.
Betty, share with us who you were before your experience, because I think that's such an important part of your experience.
Yeah, before my experience, I was a homeless, drug-addicted prostitute. I was a militant atheist. I used to describe myself as like a hedonistic party girl, but really I was a very traumatized person who was masking the wounds of trauma. Both of my parents committed suicide when I was 23 years old, so I was running away from a lot of really complicated grief for most of my life. I experienced a lot of sexual trauma as a small child, and then into my teenage years and young adulthood, it just kept following me around. And so throughout my life, I was a radical atheist because it seemed easier not to believe in God, because if I did believe in God, then I would have to believe that God was doing all of these really insane things to me. I didn't have any kind of conceptualization of thinking of anything bigger than just, okay, the world is out to get me. And so I'm not going to believe in anything because that just makes more sense to me. And so I spent my life in a lot of really painful places because of my closed-mindedness.
Gosh, like it makes perfect sense that, you would take kind of the stand of the atheist path and that mindset. Like it makes perfect sense, which actually opens my heart and to more compassion for those that have that belief system. So share with us your experience.
Yeah. So I overdosed. A drug addict who took too many drugs. Who would have ever thought? I would have definitely thought. Yeah, I overdosed in 2019, and I had overdosed lots of times in my life before, but this was the time that I had this really spiritually transformative experience as a result of it. And the first part of my experience was like a life review. I was experiencing everything in my life from my point of view and the other person's point of view. And then I started to experience things that didn't happen in my life. I experienced just all of Earth's experiences, every experience that could happen, like starvation and war and famine and childbirth and the death of a child and happiness and love. And I mean, I was going up and down the scale of consciousness over and over rapidly, like from my crown chakra to my root chakra, just like rapid firing. My spirit was becoming alive. It was becoming awoken. And I experienced my parents' suicide from their point of view. Like I was experiencing it through their eyes, like the moment they made the decision, the drive to the pharmacy to go get their refills that they were going home to overdose on, going to the liquor store, buying a bottle of alcohol, like writing their notes and, just the agony, like the ocean of anguish that they were drowning in. It was so all encompassing. So as I'm experiencing all of this, I have no idea what's happening to me, but I know that I'm seeing my parents. I know that they're dead and it feels like I'm in hell in this moment. And so I just start to believe that I am also dead. And then as I was like drowning in this darkness and just kind of accepting like, okay, I thought that nothing happens when you die, but it's way worse than what I thought because it's actually agony when you die. Then I started to hear my dad's voice and he was saying, you are worthy of all the love in the universe. You are worthy of all the love in the universe. And I didn't believe those words, but I trusted his voice. And so I started to follow his voice. And that's when I landed in the light. And it was a much different experience, very welcome than what I had just been experiencing. And I don't have great language. I've never figured out great language. So I'm just going to tell you how it looked. So to me, it looked like I was on the deck of a spaceship. It actually looked like the Gravitron ride from carnivals, like the spinning disc that goes really fast and there's no gravity inside of it. It felt like I came out of the side of one of those walls. I don't know what the significance of that is, except that my guides have always told me to share that. I don't know if it means like I went into a parallel reality or I just it just seemed like so seamless. It was like 1 second I'm here and then the next second I'm just like walking through a door and I'm somewhere else. And there was a commander in the center of the ship and it was this beam of light, just this, most beautiful, secure, safe, reunion feeling light force. Maybe it was Christ, maybe it was Krishna, maybe it was Buddha, maybe they're all kind of the same thing. It doesn't actually matter what we call it. And this commander was telling us that we were the most special volunteers. There was like thousands of souls all around me, that we were gearing up for our trip to Earth, for the transformation of consciousness, that we were on a mission for the Great Awakening. And I'm like looking all around me and I'm like, I think maybe I signed up for the wrong class. Like I don't remember volunteering for anything. I don't want to volunteer for anything. My awareness like quickly shifts to another scene and I find myself in front of a table of beings. And these were the people that were in charge. I don't know if they were in charge of everything that is or just me, but I didn't question who they were. I didn't question their quote unquote authority. I just knew that they were people that I knew, I trusted. Everything felt like innate knowing. And they told me that I was only there for information. And I was like, not me. I have finally arrived and I am staying. I still didn't know like where I was or what was going on. I just knew that where I was felt like bliss. I don't have great words to explain what this space felt like, except if you could imagine having a million orgasms and eating your favorite ice cream all at the same time. Like that's the only way that I could really describe what that heaven space felt like. It was incredible. And I was not leaving. Like, no, absolutely not. I'm staying here. And they said, nope, just information. And then my awareness shifted over to another scene and I was taken through what looked like a grocery store. And lining the walls of the grocery store aisles were these big, giant cereal boxes. And every cereal box had a life experience on it. And I was going shopping for my life. And so I had this big empty grocery cart and I start running through the aisles, supermarket sweep style, like grabbing every cereal box I can get my hands on. And I'm picking crazy stuff, like stuff that one soul has no business grabbing, like addiction and poverty and sexual trauma. I'll take the variety pack of that one, please. And, just like homelessness, degradation, dereliction, the fear, give me so much fear. I want to experience all the fear in the human life. And then there were boxes in the cart that I hadn't gotten to in my life yet, like recovery and overcoming and spiritual awakening and being a teacher and being an author. But those cereal boxes that hadn't happened to me yet. So I just figured they would go with the go backs when I went to go check out, because I was like, that's not for me. I don't get to have that kind of cereal. Like the other stuff, that makes sense. Like that stuff's mine. And yeah, like being downloaded with the idea of the pre-birth planning, like this deep spiritual knowing that I actually did design my life, it cracked me out of my victim mentality, because I saw that my soul knew that I was brave enough for this. My human doesn't understand why a soul would pick something like a cereal box that says childhood sexual trauma. Like, how could that advance me as a spirit? My human doesn't understand it, but my soul knows, and I don't need to know, because it's way above my pay grade, and I just don't need that information. Today, I just have deep-seated faith that I did in fact plan my life, and everything that's ever happened within it, all the trauma, all the tragedy, all the triumph, it's all for a greater purpose, to experience duality, to experience alchemy, and to really embrace the human experience for what it is. So I go back in front of the table of beings, victim mentality cracked off of me. I feel like a little spiritual pinball. I'm like beaming and bouncing all over the ether. And I go back in front of, my council of light. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so grateful. This information is incredible. Earth makes a lot more sense now. I still will not be returning, because that place was kind of gross and pretty ghetto, and like it's way nicer up here. I'm going to watch the apocalypse from the afterlife. I'll just like stream it on whatever streaming service you guys have here. Is it like Earth TV or something? Can I borrow somebody's password, please? And they were like, no, girl, you're going back. And that was like the bulk of my experience. It was like kind of this fight, like feeling so connected and knowing that I was actually home for the first time in my life. But then being told that I was going to have to come back. And, I got really defensive, and I was like, you guys don't tell us what Earth is like. It's BS. Like, I can't believe that you're doing this to me. And they just kind of laughed, and they were like, you say this every time you come back home. Like you go back and forth all the time, and you're always saying that we don't tell you what it's like, but you know, and really, that it's not real. You've just forgotten, and you think that it's real. And so then I said, well, I can't go back into my body, because, like she's a prostitute. She's she's wrapped in addiction. Like there's no way to heal all the stuff that she's done to herself. I can't heal it. And they said, well, you don't have to go back into her, but you will be returning. So we'll show you the baby that you'll be born into. And they showed me this really beautiful little baby. It looked a lot like a video game. So it was kind of an avatar rotating 360 degrees very slowly. All her stats pop up next to her, and her charisma level, her personality type, what her challenges would be in life, who her parents were going to be. And I watched my life experience grocery cart kind of like go into the frame of her being. And I realized, if I come back to Earth, I have to do everything from zero. I have to start over from scratch, because I'm going to be born into a new body. And I just like went back to the beings of light, and I was like, okay, if these are actually my only options, like going back into that broken body that I just came from, or starting from zero, I'm going to go back into her. And the beings of light transformed into like very loving. At first they weren't not loving. They were loving, but they were kind of firm and just like lots of information, like matter of fact information. And then after I had made the decision to go back into my body, they came at me in like this very loving, motherly, fatherly kind of way. And they said, listen, the first part of your life was boot camp, and we know that it was really hardcore. Like boot camp is gross. There's like a bald guy screaming in your face. You're doing 1,000 push-ups in the mud. The rain is coming in cold and sideways, and it's horrific. But the second part is going to be carrying out the mission. And you're going to have a tribe with you. You're going to have mentors and teachers and soulmates and kindred spirits and communities. And you're going to be living in spiritual awareness. And it's going to be so much better. Just trust us. And I was like, I do not trust you guys. Like, you have given me 0 reasons to trust you later. And I went back into my body and I sat up on my bathroom floor and I just thought that I was so high that I was talking to God. I thought that I was so high that I thought I planned my life. And I just wrote the whole thing off as drug-induced psychosis because that's where my life was at the time. And I went right back to doing all the crazy things I had been doing, like prostituting myself, selling my body, doing, like crazy, insane things to make money, stealing from people, lying, cheating, manipulating, using drugs all day, every day. I just pretended like the experience didn't happen. And it took me months to figure out that it was a real experience and not just some kind of drug-induced hallucination.
So what finally turned that corner for you? What finally you realized, oh my goodness, this actually happened?
Yeah, there was a couple of different things. One of them was that the universe was making my world very small. So the first thing that happened to me was that all of my drug dealers simultaneously decided to change their lives and stop selling drugs. But these were like 10 different men who didn't know each other. So I'd call up one guy. I'd be like, hey, man, I want to pick up. Where can I meet you? And he'd be like, listen, lose my number, delete, blocked. Like, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Right. I call up the next guy. He says the same thing. He's like, oh, listen, I'm out of the game. I want to be a good father. I found Jesus. Please don't ever call me again. Again, like blocked, deleted. It was crazy. This happened with like 10 different guys, all in the exact same hour that I'm like reaching out to try to get what I need. Because I had a physical dependency to heroin. So like I needed drugs. It wasn't just some sort of like, I needed them physically because I was going to get really sick if I didn't have them. And I found myself on day 3 of withdrawal because I just couldn't. And then, like I went out on the streets in New York trying to find drugs and I found them, of course, because like I was a drug user for a really long time. But like every time that I got them, they would be bunk or they would be fake or it would start raining and the bundle would get wet and like just anything that could happen to make it possible for me to not use was happening. And, I was on day 3 of withdrawal and I had kind of like this mental or spiritual, I just gave up. I was like, okay, I can't do this. Like, I'm not going to make it through this withdrawal. And I had been through withdrawal dozens of times in my life. But this particular one, I was like, I will not survive this. I am in so much agony. I will not survive. And then I heard this voice in my head and it said that I could request what I wanted fixed. All I had to do was write it down and make it plain. And, I was like in the throes of desperation. So I was willing to believe anything. I was like, okay, a strange voice comes to me like when I'm on the brink of suicide. Okay, I'll do whatever it says. And so I just wrote it down and I made it plain. But I also made it like I was very over intellectual about it. I wrote down on a piece of paper, fix my neurotransmitters, fix my pain receptors, make me no longer physically addicted to heroin. Because I had been to rehab enough times to like know what those words were, to know why I felt like I was in pain, even though there was nothing physically wrong with me. Because I didn't say that I wanted to be rid of my drug addiction, because I still wanted to smoke meth. I still wanted to eat acid. I still wanted to do like the fun stuff, that stuff that I thought was fun anyway. I just wanted to not be physically dependent to this one substance. And so then I laid back, I counted backwards from 10 per their directions. And as I did, these 2 little men appeared in my mind's eye, and they were wearing these white lab coats and they had these bulbous noses and these little lawnmowers manifested in front of them. They were like these little doctors of divinity. They just started plowing through my mind. I watched them go through every single crevice. And as they walked through and plowed through, I felt these intense hot tingles start to take over the whole crown of my head. And then when they were finished, I felt these X's go across my forehead. I don't know if it like represents the crown of thorns or if it was some kind of spiritual barcode or some sort of psychic surgery. But that was what it felt like. And then I felt a plunger go down on the crown of my head. And when it plunged down and back up, there was this bright white flash and I was instantaneously healed out of day 3 of heroin withdrawal, which is like the worst day. It's like the day that you're sick all over yourself. You're welcoming death. It felt like my blood was made of lava, like my skin was made of broken glass. Everything hurt. My eyelashes hurt. My fingernails hurt, probably from holding on for dear life. But everything on my body just ached and hurt. And then all of a sudden, nothing. I was completely well and healed and fine, totally capable of doing anything. And I hopped out of bed and I threw myself on my knees and I was crying out to a God that I did not believe in. And I said, how could this be happening to me? I don't believe in this. I don't believe in you. You could not have picked a more unworthy subject to bestow this kind of grace on. And then I heard this message and it said, but you're worthy of all the love in the universe. You're worthy of all the love in the universe. And then I thought that I was the second coming of Christ because obviously, right? And I really, really did. And I went out like on the New York City subway system and I started proselytizing and evangelizing and laying hands on homeless drug addicts, telling them that I had the power to heal them. And it was so crazy. But I didn't know anything about spiritual awakening. I didn't know anything about near-death experiences. So all I knew is that whatever was happening in my life was wacky as heck. And I thought that maybe I could help other people from it. I just didn't know how. And so, yeah, those were the moments that made me realize that it was a real experience, the healing and my path getting super narrow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Betty, tell me, how did you build this faith or your bridge of faith from the experience till where you are now? Like, what was that process for you?
Yeah. So, when all this first happened, like I didn't know God. So our relationship was rocky at best. I mean, like I was willing to allow like this new kind of thing into my life, but I was still like very cautious because I just didn't know. My God had been drugs for all of my life. And so they were telling me that I had to let go of my old God and welcome in a new God. And that was really uncomfortable for me because I was really conditioned and patterned to believe in one thing. So the way that I describe it is like, at first, God felt like a condemning parent to me. It was like, you can't use drugs. If you don't use drugs, I'll love you. But then I started working the 12 steps in a 12-step program. And they told me that my God could only be loving and caring and unconditional. And there couldn't be any sort of judgment or condemnation, which I knew that there wasn't condemnation because how could I be bestowed with grace if there was, like if I made it to heaven, everybody is, because I had done everything wrong in my life. So at first it felt like I was following a parent and then I had to switch it. And so it still felt kind of parental, but it started to become like a little bit more loving. And then as I continued to like walk through this journey of faith and devour every sacred text I could get my hands on and everything I could learn about metaphysics and the law of attraction and develop my spirituality and my faith, somewhere along the way, God became like a best friend that I was holding hands with. So I usually use this imagery. Like at first, my faith felt like I was on this broken boogie board, like in this big, huge ocean of change. And every so often, like these tidal waves would happen. Like everything in my life was going to get torn apart and rebuilt. And I'm like just drowning with like water, just, completely all over me. I have this broken boogie board. It's like in pieces. The strap is broken. There's Swiss cheese holes everywhere. And then it's like a muscle, So like every day I'm going to the spiritual gym. I'm like doing something to like, instill my faith. Just like little weights, like little 2-pound weights. I'm not going in there and picking up a 500-pound weight, just like a little tiny thing. So then eventually the Swiss cheese holes started to mend. And then like the boogie board itself came back together. The strap reconnected. And then all of a sudden it transformed into a surfboard. And now I'm like surfing the waves of change and faith. And then all of a sudden it became like a little rowboat and then a little tugboat. And then now I have like this huge yacht and it's like the best. It's like super big. It's really fancy. There's great music playing. There's like food and there's all this fancy water because I don't drink. So there's no champagne, but like, it's just beautiful. There's like a pool on board. But the thing about my faith journey is that I can throw myself back into the ocean if I want. Like there's many times when I take my self-will back and I forget all about God and my experience and like what I'm here to do. And I'm just like, no, I feel like drowning today. Let me just throw myself off the edge, like being very dramatic. But there's always this life preserver that's kind of attached to me. There's nothing that I can really do to shake, what's transformed in my life today. I have deep-seated faith today. And yeah, the journey it wasn't like I'm instantly like I'm in God's good graces. Like I had to develop a relationship with something bigger than myself. And I love that part of the journey. It's my favorite.
Thank you for joining us. Coming up next in part 2.
I didn't know how to do anything. And so like I had to relearn not only how to be like a spiritual being on a path, but I had to figure out how to be a human being, period. How do I manage the fact that I got everything that I ever prayed for? I prayed for success. I prayed for financial abundance. I prayed for safety, security, a beautiful home, a loving partner. But how is there enough time in the day to actually do all of these things? Like, I'm still human. I'm here to be human. So I allow myself to experience all of my humanness.